Welcome back. This is episode 6, and we're back on track now. So, what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover our buffs and debuffs. And when we're talking about buffs and debuffs, what we're talking about is these right here and your consolidated buffs on the sides. The buffs on you, or correction, on your target, on your raid, maybe arena or boss frames. That's something a little bit different, and that'll be covered in unit frames. Same thing with your raid target or your raid frames. That's also covered in there. So let's take a look at how we're going to set this up. First of all, we want to line these up so that it's where we want them to be. Now, if you make adjustments to your frames at all, or to your sizes, you're going to have to readjust again. I think we're probably going to have to do that with this as well. But I like to line it up right about so. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this. As you can see, there are only 3 that we're going to look at: consolidated, buff, and debuffs. So as you can see, I've got the weekly buff, and if I was to target myself, you would see that here. That's what I mean. It'll be covered in the unit frames. But now that we're just talking about the buffs and debuffs here, let's look at a few things, and we'll make some adjustments as we go. So any change you make here is going to change all of your buffs and all of your debuffs. So if you want your buffs to look a little bit different than your debuffs, you need to keep this in mind. And I know that I want to make some changes to both of them, so I'm going to change it here. So I'm going to leave this the same. Your fade threshold is when it gets down to 5 seconds. When your buff or debuff gets down to 5 seconds, it'll start flashing and the text will turn red. 5 seconds is a good place to put it. It gives you time to react. And as you saw when I adjusted the media, I set expressway. Now the font size I set for 16, but that's too big for the buffs and debuffs. So I'm going to reset that one to 14. I'm also going to set the outline, the font outline. I like to have that, as you've seen with the rest of them, I'd like to have an outline on it. And then I'm also going to change the Y offset on the timer to 14. Now what that does is, if there was a timer on here, it would put the timer right about here. And then I'm going to change the Y offset on the count as well, but I'm going to set that one to 19. And that'll set the count to the top. So if, for example, you have lightning shield for shaman, it'll put your count up top and your timer down the bottom for it. As you can see up here, this is the lightning shield that I was discussing with 6 stacks and set for 52 minutes. And then my greater intellect flask, my well-fed, and then my focus augment runestone. With any other debuff that you have. Okay. And that's really all you need to change for this. You could change the X offset for both of these, but I like where it sits with 0. Now let's take a look at your consolidated. Your consolidated are your buffs on your raid buffs on the side right here. And of course, I don't have any yet, only level 1, so I can't give one of the other buffs, the mastery or the stats. That'll come later on. But we've enabled the consolidated. If you take the check mark out of here, it'll get rid of the buffs and or your raid buffs on the side right here. And then you can filter and it'll show the remaining time. You can take that off if you want, but I leave it on because I like to see how much time is remaining on those buffs. You can also set whether it's on the right or the left. This will take a reload, so I'm not going to do it. But basically what it does is it takes your consolidated buffs on the right-hand side and it moves it to the left-hand side, and then it'll slide your mini map all the way over. So we're going to leave the text at Expressway. And then we're also going to leave the font size at 10. 10 seems to be a pretty good size for this. And then we're just going to give it an outline. And there you go. Your consolidated buffs are set up. Now your debuffs. Okay, so 32 seems to be a pretty good size, I believe, for this. So we're going to leave it at 32. And that's the actual size of the icon. And that's the size that you see right now that I have. And your next one is your growth direction. So what that's going to do is you can look at these and you can see what direction do you want them to grow. Do you want them to go from left to right? Do you want to go left and up? I mean, it's up to you. If you decide you want your buffs over this side, then you might want to reverse how they grow. But for where they're sitting right now, I like left, then down. And then this is the max number of wraps. So you will have 3 rows of 12. And then you want to decide your horizontal spacing. And 3 is actually a good number for me. And your vertical spacing, now remember we got rid of all of the text that used to be here, and it's now actually on there. So I'm going to change that to, let's see, let's take a look at 5. It's kind of hard to look at because we don't have a whole lot of buffs right now. And that's something that you will see on yours, and you'll have to adjust it as you go along. So your sort method, you can sort by time, name, index, whatever you want to set it for. I leave it as time. And then ascending or descending, we leave it at descending. And then it's going to put mine up first. And then you could also set it for no sorting or whatever you want to set it for. All right. So the last one we got to look at here is your debuffs. Your debuffs, we're going to leave the same. We're going to wrap after 12 again. Max wraps, I like to set it for 2, just in case I have some extra debuffs. Again, we're going to change this to 3. And because we put our text on us, or on the icon, we're going to set it for 5. And then again, these are the same as well. So there's not a whole lot of changing. Now, we did make some changes to sizings, specifically horizontal spacing and vertical spacing. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to toggle in and make some adjustments here. That actually brought our player debuffs up a little bit higher. And then we're all set up right here. Let's bump this up 1. There we go. Okay. And that sets up your buffs and debuffs, and then your consolidated. And that's it. It's that simple. All right, so that's it for this one. Some additional notes. I did make some changes, as you can see. I put our guy in his heirloom gear, and I did play with the background frame. As you can see, I set it right here from our last episode. I was discussing how you could set it here. I tested it, and this is this actually looks pretty good. I've got it set up on a few of my other characters as well, so we're going to play with this for a while and see how that looks. But as far as buffs and debuffs, that's all there is to it. Thank you for joining. This was a short one, so we'll see you later.